welcome to Podro Pascal, a Pedro Pascal podcast. I am your host, Rachel Leishman. Today, I do not have my co-host, Katrina Dennis, but I do have my friend, Sophie. Sophie,
Hello.
introduce yourself to the audience.
My name is Sophie. My Twitter is Sobi1 Kenobi. Please don't follow me. It is terrible.
You
Play The
did go
Last of Us Part
viral.
1 and Part 2 for Rachel on my Twitch. So
Yes, you did. And you did go somewhat viral by sharing a meme of Tony Soprano with the duck.
I wouldn't even call that
And
viral. That was just like
it was just
me
that
just being myself. Like, yes, this is how I
it was
felt.
just that my roommate saw it in a chat that none of us are in. It was just like, that's Sophie's tweet. And I mean, aptly enough, I discovered on the where we record this on the board there is a song called "Feeding the Ducks," and I instantly thought about Tony Soprano, because that's lovely. So this week we are talking about the third episode of The Last of Us, which Pedro Pascal is in, but Joel Miller is not by any means the main character of this episode. Um, Before we get started, there are some news items. Pedro Pascal is going to host SNL next Saturday, which
Whoop, whoop,
I'm
whoop.
attempting to go.
I hope you guys make it because I will not be there. I'll be there in spirit.
You'll be there in spirit. I'm hoping to get in. I haven't done this new lottery system, but I'll figure that out. And he's also going to be on Fallon the Thursday before, which is typically what they do with the hosts for
Oh,
SNL
so
anyway.
he's finally gonna be on Fallon.
Yeah, but it is also like normally if you're hosting SNL, you are on Fallon the Thursday before.
Okay.
So I want they might have like I think I remember someone telling me he was rescheduled for like last week, but then I think if they got him for SNL, they probably were just like, no, we're gonna push it out again. But I don't know how true that is. I didn't look further into when he was going to be on Jimmy Fallon. But he is going to be on Thursday, and then on Saturday he'll be on SNL with musical guest Coldplay, and I hope they play songs from 2004
Are they
because I
coming out
want
with a
them to
new
play.
album?
I have no idea.
I
I
didn't
just
know
want
they
them
were
to
still putting
play.
out new music.
I want them to play Green Eyes, and I want them to play like The Scientist. Maybe Fix
The
You.
most depressing songs, please, no.
Green Eyes isn't depressing. Green Eyes is about green
Well,
eyes.
this,
But yeah, that's kind of the news. He's doing those two things, so like that's very exciting. Me and producer Ashley are gonna try and go with a couple friends to SNL. I don't know how it's going to work, but we're manifesting good energy that we will get to go. In the meantime, though, we get to talk about episode 3 of The Last of Us. Um, and Sophie, I did bring you on for this one because it is the most changes from the game.
yes.
Out of what we have seen of this series thus far, this is the one that makes the most changes. And so here's how I want to do this. Again, there'll be warnings, but there's spoilers in these. So if you haven't watched it or
Yeah.
you haven't played the game, don't listen. But Sophie, why don't you explain what
Just don't listen.
happens? Just don't listen. Past here. You can come back later, but don't listen right now. Why don't you explain to our listeners Bill from the game and his storyline in the game?
Bill from the game is literally like one of the best characters. Like, even though in the game he will royally fuck everything up for you, he doesn't want to help. From some point, it's just red cross signs the entire time because he's constantly dying. So you have to help him. Like, Bill's useless in a way, but then also he's not useless, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So it's just like it's great to see him in the game, but I feel like what I missed in this episode was like Ellie and Bill meeting, because like right when they first meet each other, they're like beating the shit out of each other, and it's just kind of like, okay, like she's feisty, she doesn't like him, but he kind of likes her. So he's kind of like, okay, like you're taking this kid, I'll help you, but I don't like her. But I like her. It's weird. But it's just like
Well,
Bill just he don't like people. And you find that out very fast in the show. He's just like, okay, like he's like, I like Tess. Like, you see that he cares about Tess in the game, so it's like he's always asking, well, where's Tess? How's Tess
Mhm.
doing? Like that. But
Which in the show is a bit different. We'll get to Frank. I'm also going to make you explain Frank later. But so in the show, we get a couple of like before moments, which to be clear, I watched my screeners and fully forgot about this whole beginning part of this episode. I fully thought it was just Bill the entire time. I was like, he's not really in this episode, only to like be reminded as I was watching it, like, oh
yeah.
no, there's a bunch of stuff beforehand. But so we get a little bit of the Tess aftermath, as it were, which is kind of sad given today the original voice of Tess, Anne Wershing. Is that how you say her last name?
I'm not sure how you say it, but
Annie Wershing, I believe,
yeah.
is how you pronounce her name. She passed away, and so it is kind of it was harder to kind of watch the Tess funeral. But so funeral, it's we're seeing the aftermath of Tess's death, which is kind of Joel is having his own little ceremony where he piled up a bunch of rocks in honor of her dying, and him and Ellie kind of had like a come to Jesus moment where she was basically like, "You guys decided to do this. Her death is not my fault."
Yeah.
Um, and it was like there wasn't animosity between her and Joel, which was nice because that's all we've kind of seen thus far is the two of them at odds with each other. Um, so I liked that part of this episode where it was like, no, you're right. Like we chose to do this, so it is not your fault. And then they go to find Joel's stash where they go into the Cumberland Farms, and as they're walking around, Ellie is essentially just like, "You don't remember what it is," and he's like, "I'm just zero or where it is," and he's, "I'm zeroing in on it," uh, which I loved because what a man response to be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I know where it is," and he fucking didn't. Um, but we get to see Ellie be kind of like, I don't know how to describe what she does to this infected person that she
I
finds.
the way I look at it, it's kind of like she wasn't taught that in the federal school, so she's being more like, I wonder what this does, kind of like a science project. Like she's like, okay, this thing's alive but dead, but I wonder what happens if I slit this in the forehead. Like I wonder what happens. But then you see
It's
like the little
her,
tendrils coming out.
yeah, it's her frog. She's
So then she's
like,
like, okay, now I'm gonna kill it. I was like, all right,
she was
you're
like,
kind
I'm
like
gonna
we're
like,
seeing the messed up like parts of Ellie before
yeah, and
things go to shit.
and I like, I guess I get it on a level of like, yeah, if you're not taught that stuff and you're trying to figure it out and you view the infected as like less than, I understand the gut reaction to slice the forehead of this thing
I
because it
mean, I
was
would do it if I saw one. I'd
nutty.
be like, hey, what is this? What's this? But
It was nutty. And then she finds tampons and goes up back upstairs. Which I loved. I love that she found tampons and was like, "Oh yeah, looked over my ass," and throws them in her backpack. And Joel doesn't bat an eye. I was like, "Yeah, he had a daughter. He didn't care. He was just like, yes, here you go. Bye." Oh, they leave, and they're having like a whole little come to Jesus talking to each other relationship. She's asking a lot about the before times. Um, and she does talk to him about how they think it happened, which there were theories. I knew before I had even watched the rest of the season. I was like, something was up with the pancakes and the Bisquick.
yeah.
Um, but then I got to this episode, and so I was like, oh yeah, confirmed. But a lot of theories were like something was up with the pancake mix. So I
But
would
can
be
we just
fine because
talk about how
I
he
don't
was
like
just
pancakes.
like sugar, flour, and then pancake mix? Like we went from like just random ingredients to just straight pancake mix.
It made me think of the song from Waitress that's like sugar, butter, flour. I was like, the third ingredient should be butter because that's a typical cooking ingredient. But instead, it was like pancake mix. And it's like, yeah, I'd be fine because I don't eat pancakes. I would survive the apocalypse exclusively because I don't eat pancakes. He was like, that's what they said it was because, and Fedra never taught it. to Ellie and them in school.
Yeah.
But she also asks him about a scar on his head. And there was another big moment. It was that, a scar where he said someone shot me. Um, but but they missed. But then, so it goes, she's like, I'm gonna go walk over and look at this thing. And Joel tells her the most like unsettling piece of information of all time, which is essentially that like the government lied to a bunch of people and they just murdered uninfected human beings that they didn't have room for. And it's nuts because
Like,
that's how we kind of get kicked back into time.
that's why I was just like, so y'all just really said no. Like, just kill them all.
Yeah, they murder. So it's like the the way it is described is basically like Joel's like, yeah, they lied to a bunch of people. They said to come up here, and then there wasn't space. And the thought process was that like a dead body cannot become infected.
Yeah.
So if they go ahead and murder people, um, then they don't have to worry about more infected. Which it is sadly kind of the same idea that they had with bombing the cities, which was like if you bomb a city, those dead bodies will not become infected, and so then
Yeah.
there are less infected people to worry about. But it is just like well, the government was just like, no, it's free for all. We're gonna murder everybody. It's nuts. Um, which then takes us back in time to just fucking Fedra red Xing doors and like because the way we get taken back is it zooms in on a blanket. I thought it was like a kid's t-shirt, which I was like, that's really sad. And then it got even worse because it was a baby blanket instead.
Yeah. I was like, okay. I don't want to watch a baby die. Like this like why do they have to like tear at our heartstrings even more in this episode? Like
The whole
let's just
episode
start it
is
off like with a child dying. Like yes.
well, and I will say what I did like about this episode is it didn't show that it's implied, which
Yeah.
I was like, great. I don't need to see a kid fucking dying. I'm good, thanks. So they go back in time. It's showing all these towns, um, and watching on his little at-home TV is Bill, who is
His
played by
little
Nick Offerman.
his security system.
It's played by he's played by Nick Offerman, which he was not originally supposed to be played by Nick Offerman. He was originally supposed to be played by Con O'Neill, who fans of The Last of Us know him as like Blackbeard's like right hand. Um, Con O'Neill could not do it, so Nick Offerman took over. What is so funny to me is that they got Nick Offerman, and it is essentially like, what if Nick Offerman and Ron Swanson together merged into one human being, and they had to survive an apocalypse? Because it's like the aspects of Ron Swanson that came from Nick Offerman are part of Bill's character, but he's just not the extremes that Ron Swanson is. Um, but it is very much like you're like, yeah, this is like how Ron wants to survive an apocalypse. Just in a bunker by himself, like nobody come in here. I don't want to talk to anybody.
Which I love for him.
Yeah, I'm
Like that's what he
happy for
needs.
Nick. I'm so happy for Nick Offerman. But it is very much I was like, oh, this is Ron. I never thought about Bill in that way because it was never like that directly connected until they cast Nick Offerman as the part, and then I was like, that's all I can think about. And he's by himself though in this big old house with some insane decorations. I don't know who decorated Bill's house for him because he has floral curtains that are nutty. I don't, but beside the point. But I do not understand who decorated Bill's house for him. Um, Ashley did say his mother. That is correct.
But
But
you have
also
to
like,
also think it's like early 2000s. So like you already know like the decor was not great cuz I remember my grandparents had like a floral couch, floral rugs. It was just god awful. Like now that I look back
yeah.
at it, it's disgusting.
Oh yeah, they
Like what were we thinking?
Well, looking at the fashions of this show, I'm like, this is gross. You should have just continued to set it in 2013 so I didn't have to think about 2000s fashion in this way. And then, like, on top of that, like, Bush stuff. Um, it's like George W. Bush or a really bad t-shirt with a long sleeve shirt underneath it. Which is worse? Bush, but like you get my point. That is 2003 is like Bill essentially being like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't like people. And he's like in his house by himself. And then is it still in 2003 when Frank shows up? No, that's the 7 years later.
Yeah, it's like years later because he's like already kind of like
Right.
made his little home, his little community of himself. Like he's already went to the Home Depot, keeps going back
That's
to Home
right.
Depot. You know, he's got everything he needs. He's got a boutique, whatever else he
It
needs,
might
gas.
it might not have been 7 years later. I can't remember how many years it
Or I
was,
think
but
it
it was
was
like a couple
3.
years later. Yeah, it's like a couple years later. He's like, "Here I go, riding around town." Derp, 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 derp. Was that the Cream song that was playing?
Yeah.
Like when he's like driving around town. So he's like going around. Like so, he said he goes to a Home Depot, which as I was watching this, was like, my house would look so good because I'd be like, "What else am I doing with my time? I have a Home Depot and resources, so I'm going to just make my house look nice." Um, but or Bill goes and he's like basically making a camp so no one can get in and bother him, which is like on the one hand very smart. You're like, great, no zombie. So sorry, Neil Druckmann, I know you don't like that. No infected person it can get in. But on the other hand, you're like, this is so depressing. This man was like, I'm by myself. I don't want anyone around. I'm just staying here in my little town that I made up with endless supplies of meat. Where is he getting the meat?
That's
I
that's
didn't
a
see a
good
single
question.
cow. Like, does he have
Maybe
like
he
two
maybe he just
cows?
maybe he hunted and then he just like had a freezer somewhere and he just like skinned it, cut it,
Mm,
packaged it, put it in his little freezer, saved it for later.
maybe. I don't know where he gets his meat. But so he's like he has his little town, he makes it all nice and he makes traps. One of those traps catches Frank. So Sophie, go ahead and explain Game Frank.
You don't know nothing about Game Frank. He just
I
despises
know,
Frank at the end because
yeah.
it's
Oh, you meant in general. I was like,
like
I
you don't
know
like
what.
he's his partner.
Yeah,
But like I have the note that he like wrote on my phone so I could be like I could give you like
read the
a
note.
little
Yeah,
bit of
read the
it.
note.
So the note says, "Well, Bill, I doubt you'd ever find this note because you were too scared to ever make it to this part of town. But if for some reason you did, I want you to know I hated your guts. I grew tired of this shitty town and of your set-in ways and attitude. I wanted more from life than this, and you could never get that." That's pretty harsh right there. Like that paragraph alone, you're just like what happened? And that's what I wanted. I wanted to know what happened. But then
Well, we did not get that.
no. And then, which he said, and that stupid battery you kept moaning about, I got it. But I guess you were right. Trying to leave this town would kill me. Still better than spending another day with you. Good luck, Frank.
And so like we don't get to know what happened, but they do have in my opinion, a better ending
But
because
I
it
I think
is
in the game though, it's like after like you find the note, you can hand it to Bill. Bill reads it, throws it away because he's like pissed off about it because you see Frank, he hung himself. And the only way you know that it's Frank and that it was his partner was because Bill makes the comment that only Frank would wear a shirt like that, and it's like a ugly ass Hawaiian shirt.
which he does not wear in the show. But
Which I'm sad
I
about.
will we had a couple of people over to watch it, Sophie included. And as we were watching it, my friend Jenna, who listens to the podcast, so hi Jenna, kept calling the shirts they are wearing Frankie shirts. But because Murray Bartlett plays the character Frank, I was like, I don't remember that from the game. And I realized she meant Frankie Morales, Pedro Pascal's character from Triple Frontier. And she was correct, but I just like did not understand what she meant until the very end of the episode. I was like, oh, you mean Alice? Okay, great,
See,
got
I've
this.
never watched that, so I wouldn't know.
Sophie, next time we do a Triple Frontier episode, come back on because we do one every season because I love Triple Frontier. Frank in the game is very different, obviously. By the time this comes up, I will probably have a piece up about it. I like the changes a lot. I like that Frank as a character. The minute they cast Murray Bartlett, I was like, great. We're going to have a story because like I had to do a breakdown of characters uh, from the game, and they're like, and they're uh, who they were playing. When I read that Murray Bartlett was playing Frank, I was like, Frank, huh? And then I looked it up. I was like, he's not in it. He's dead. And so then I instantly knew they were going to do something else. Um, Giving Bill kind of this storyline and making that a complete like I like the changes a lot just because it's not a video game where you can go back and kind of deal with storylines you've already worked through at whatever point, or like I don't know, say at some point in the game they were like, "Oh, you left something in Boston, go back to
Yeah,
Boston." Like that
like
doesn't exist in a TV show.
my thing too, it's like from playing the game and playing in Bill's town, like I can see why people were very excited about this episode and being like, oh, like we get to see like Joel, Bill, Ellie all together fighting infected, Bill's traps, all this stuff. Like, granted, you do get to see one of Bill's traps in the beginning, like when he's like cooking his little nice 5-star dinner, drinking his wine, doing whatever he's doing. But it's like, I don't know. I just feel like Neil and Craig have made it very clear that this is not going to be a show where they're running around killing things constantly. It's not going to be an action-based show, like, which it makes sense. You can't really do that because I feel like at that point it's going to become The Walking Dead, and then you're just going to get tired of it very quick.
Yeah, and
So,
I think it works
which
with this
it works. So it's just
character
like with
too.
what they're doing, it's kind of like you're touching base on most of these like the plots in the game, these characters in the game. But with this, it's like you're giving more of a story to them that they never got in the game, because it's like Tess, you kind of get more of Tess in the game than what you do with Bill. Bill just kind of like grumpy old man, whatever. Like antisocial, doesn't like people. He'll just do whatever to do to kill the infected. He doesn't care.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, and it is because it's everything is more character driven. The game itself is very character driven. That's why people liked it in the first place. But with the show, they cut out a lot of like the video game actiony things, and like it has been a running bit online where people are like, "That ladder was already standing up. I had to pick the ladder up every time I tried to climb up," so, and like stuff like that.
I will say I
But
missed the plank. I want the plank to come. I need to watch Pedro Pascal push a plank with Bella Ramsey on it and just go about.
um, but yeah, I can't swim. And then he said no smartass and jumped into the water, and it was like to his knees. But I do like that the show with especially Bill and Frank. So as Sophie was saying, Bill cooks himself like a couple years after he like has made Billstown. He makes himself a 5-star meal. He's drinking his little wine. He's sitting at the
Oh,
table,
Benji.
and then there goes Benji. And then for our listeners, my cat is just appearing. So you'll sorry if you're not watching the video of this, but my cat is just showing up random places. Um, and so Frank ends up in one of Bill's traps, and he's just like, "Hello, hi," and see having it be Murray Bartlett is so sweet and funny to me at the same time because it's like Bill shows up, is aggressive. It's like, "Are you armed?" And Murray Bartlett pauses and then says, "No." And their dynamic is instantly like chaotic and funny because he's like, "Why'd you pause?" "Well, because I thought about lying, but then I decided against it." And they're like honest, but also like to a fault because like he doesn't need to know your whole
No.
thought. He was just like, but he tells him anyway, and I think that's kind of why they work because like they are honest with each other versus like in the game where it is they hit a breaking point and then they're done.
Yeah. And
And
you never found out what that breaking point was. Bill never spoke about it.
no, and in the show though, we do get to see them kind of have like fights and breaking
Yeah.
points, and it's not perfect by any means. They go, they're like, he's like, "Can I have some food I haven't eaten in 2 days?" Bill's like, It's basically, I don't think I'm the first person that said this, but it is basically if you give a mouse a cookie. Because he's like, if I give you a meal, everyone's gonna want a meal. And he's like, no, no, no. And then he like comes and stays and lives with them forever.
But this isn't an Arby's comment.
Yeah, this isn't an Arby's. And he goes, Arby's didn't give free food? Like, he's so caught up in the semantics of like this argument. He's like, Arby's never did that. And like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. You get the point. But it is just funny how he's like, boy, I don't remember Arby's handing out free roast beef sandwiches. Um, but so they go inside, they're eating this really nice meal. Fucking Bill is a sommelier, I guess. He was like, "Do you like this wine paired with your what did I call it? A brisket?"
Yeah, you called it a brisket.
He was like, "Would you like this
But
wine?"
I think he made like he made something like it was like lamb. It looked like lamb.
Where is he
But
getting?
because there was like bones sticking out of it or something. So I don't know where he's
Does he
getting
have
this.
a guy? You think he's a lamb guy? He's like, let me call up my lamb guy and see what he's got for me. But so sommelier Bill makes this nice meal, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna get out of your hair soon." And the two of them kind of like, if you know Bill and Frank's story, you kind of are like, yeah, they're flirting. But if you don't know, you're like, these two guys are just chit chatting. No, they're flirting.
Just chit
Um,
chatting.
so then Frank is like, before I leave though, I want to play this. And he walks over to this piano. First of all, the most relatable thing about Bill is that before I get into the music, I played piano from the time I was 6 until I was 17. So when Murray Bartlett sat down on this piano, it was A, badly playing, and then B, singing off key. I was like, I also would have been Nick Offerman and been like, stop, you gotta stop, you gotta stop doing this.
Like
But he sits down and like, if you did not know Bill and Frank were gay prior to this moment, he sits down and the first thing he grabs out of a piano bench is Linda Ronstadt's sheet music. It's like the best of Linda Ronstadt. And Bill, in his credits, like, oh, this is my mom's sheet music. And Frank goes, nah, this one's you. And it was and it was the nah, no, this is you that I was like, he said, you're not trying to like pretend like you don't listen to Linda Ronstadt.
like don't lie to me. Don't
And
lie.
famously, I know Linda Ronstadt songs, but I know she also was like in a relationship with George Lucas, because the George Lucas talk show makes jokes about Linda Ronstadt all the fucking time, because of George Lucas and her. So I said as we were watching it that I hope George Lucas was watching the show, just like trying to enjoy it on Skywalker Ranch, and just playing Linda Ronstadt.
Could you imagine if he actually like watches this show? Like
I if I was like
no
if I was the
peace.
person who chose like if it was either if I was Neil or Craig, I don't know who chose Linda Ronstadt, but if I was like one of them and I chose that song and then found out that George Lucas watches my show, I would have been like, I did it. I have angered George Lucas. Um, but so he goes in it's chaotic, but I love it so much. He goes, Nick Offerman stops Murray Bartlett from singing this song in a bad way. He's like, stop talking, stop singing, you're doing this wrong. And Murray Bartlett goes, I'm not a professional. And Nick Offerman goes, neither am I. Makes him get up and then takes over and plays this song. And it is, have you seen, have you ever seen Dan in real life?
No. I feel like
So
you're gonna hate me
in
just because I say no.
no, 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 no. It's the movie. There's one moment that, like, if you've seen the movie, you think about it all the time. If you haven't seen the movie, you would understand this.
Okay.
So, the premise of Dan in real life is that Steve Carell's wife died. He has his daughter. He hasn't really been home with his family because he's like, he can't move on from his wife's death, all that kind of stuff. His younger brother, played by Dane Cook, so cancel, is trying to impress this girl that Steve Carell kind of was already flirting with before he knew it was his brother's girlfriend. Um, and so they're doing like a talent kind of thing with the family where it's like everyone does whatever that night. And Dane Cook wants to sing "Let My Love Open the Door" by the Who, but he doesn't know like 90% of the words, and so he keeps needing like prompting, and so then he stops the song before the last, or not the last section, but like before a very important part of the song, which is the lyric, "When tragedy befalls you, don't let it bring you down." And so like the tone of this song is like do 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 do, and you are never found in love, and it's very upbeat. And then, so they finish the song, everyone's like, "Yay!" And then it cuts to Steve Carell, and he's just on the guitar by himself, being like, "When tragedy befalls you," and it's so sad, and you just start crying because he's talking about his wife. It
No,
is
I don't like
That
this.
is the energy that this scene had for me, where it was like Murray Bartlett's like, "I'm having the time of my life," singing Linda Ronstadt, "Woo, long, long time. This is so much fun."
But it
And
it was it was
it's
Murray Bartlett being like, "Oh, is there a girl?"
yeah, so it's like it's very depressing and sad, and you're like, "Oh no, what's going on? Like, who broke his heart?" And so Murray Bartlett says, "Who's the girl?" And Nick Offerman goes, "There was never a girl." And Murray Bartlett puts his hand on Nick Offerman's shoulder and goes, "Did he say I know?"
Yeah,
Shut
I
him.
know.
It was just like he would like knew he was gay. It is like both the nicest way of being like, yes, these two characters are gay, but we're not going to be like, "I'm gay" on an HBO show in 2023, but also just so chaotic because you were like, but it's like 2000, and I guess they
3.
have a
Well, wait.
2003 mentality, but they have a
Yeah.
2003 mentality, which we all looked up when gay marriage became legal in Massachusetts, trying to figure out like where their relationship lined up with the legalization of gay marriage in the US. Because when you think about the stuff that really did not happen in, not even like, we were making jokes about songs, like, so not even like pop culture and stuff, but like legislation, you're like, oh wow, we all just are stuck in the bush here for
Literally, and
the
it's like,
rest of the
damn, like, how depressing.
just to be
Like,
stuck in the
you're
bush
just
there.
stuck.
Oh man. Um,
Benjamin!
there he goes. But so it's like the two of them share a moment. They kiss on the piano bench. Um, and then they go upstairs and they fuck, and it is great. Zero notes.
What does Frank say to Bill, though,
He goes, "Go
before
take a
this?
shower." He goes, "Go take a shower." And then so like Frank's just chilling in the bed with his shirt off, and so Murray Bartlett's just like, literally it cuts to Murray Bartlett saying like this, and he's just sitting there waiting for Nick Offerman, and Nick Offerman comes out shirtless, and then Murray Bartlett takes out. It's like very hot, and also Murray Bartlett like pulls the sheets back. I was like, this is great. No notes on this scene. Very hot. Learn about how Bill has never been with a man. He was with a girl once and was like, no thanks. And so Murray Bartlett's like, okay, no problem, and like takes it. So it's great. And then from there, it like cuts to, I think from there is like 7 years, whatever. It's 2010 the next time we see
Yeah.
them.
I know it's, like, further, and that's, like, when they first
Oh,
started
wait.
fighting, because then,
Well,
like,
first
that
it
won't
was the
happen.
like, first is I think they have sex. The next day he's like, "I'll leave in a few days." And then it cuts to a couple years later and they're still in the house. They're fighting like an old married couple. Like, it's basically like he didn't fucking go anywhere.
And he want
To them.
and he wants to, like, make the town look cute. He wants to make it, like, something they both can enjoy. He's like, "'Cause I wanna
Yeah.
fix this up." Like, go let
Yeah.
him
And
do
he's,
his little thing. Let him be a little interior design
yeah,
architecture
didn't he want a
man. Like,
floral shop?
yeah.
Yeah, he wanted a floral shop, which then if you pay attention to the back of the rest of the episode, there's like sunflowers and flowers, and I loved it. I was like, all right, go off, Frank. He was like, I want to make a floral shop. You have your shops. They're like making this town for themselves because nobody else lives there. It is just for them. It's not like in The Walking Dead when they would go somewhere and there would be like a whole town with like shops and stuff that people have. It is legit just these two
It's just them
dudes.
2. I
Yeah,
respect that.
and they're like, "We will fix this and make it right." But so then the two of them, they have a little tiff because Frank is like, "I want to make us look nice for when we have friends," and Bill's like, "We don't have friends." He's like, "We're gonna have friends. I'm talking to a nice lady on the radio."
And she's coming for dinner.
Yeah, and he's like, "What?" And it is so funny because it's just like the way that they go about this is just like you forgot, like for a minute, it's like, oh, did I forget that this show is about the apocalypse? Like bacteria or fungus like eating brains and turning people into these infected creatures because it is just like a little love story and drama in the midst of this apocalypse show that you almost forget like everything else going on. And it was like nice for a minute until you realize like, oh shit, none of this is gonna end great.
Yeah, because
But it
it's
was
it just it gives you like a good little like calmness where you're not stressed.
yeah, until you think about it for too long.
I try not to do that.
You're like, I try not to.
No.
But if you think about it for a second, you're like, oh, what's gonna happen here? This is about to be bad. But yeah, so it's like he goes, I met a nice lady on the radio. And it cuts to the most awkward dinner, but for just Joel and Bill. Frank and Tess are having the fucking time of their lives because the woman on the phone, or the phone, woman on the radio is obviously Tess. Um, and they're talking about like kind of working together because obviously Bill and Frank have resources. They have all these guns. They have a lot of not technology, but they have a lot of things that they can use outside in Boston. I don't know where they are at that point. I don't know if they're in Boston, but like wherever they
They're
are.
I feel like they're still in the Boston area because I feel like they have to be close to Bill and Frank in order to like go back and forth.
Yeah. But so they are there and they're like, okay, what we're gonna do is essentially have this like we'll trade off. But the like dinner is like that's what Frank and Tess want from the get go. They're like, well, this little trade off would be really sweet. This will be nice. But Bill is sitting at the table with a gun at Joel.
And he had it loaded and ready. Like he made it clear that he's like, I'm this is it. Like, listen, you hear the click. It's
Yeah.
ready.
And
Don't
this
do
is like
nothing.
another masterclass in like making Pedro Pascal look a little younger than he is. This one is so it was 7 years after um 2003. So he was 36. And so this is now what? He's 43. So he's about 3 years younger.
Yeah. I would say
But
about that age.
he looks about what he is now because he's 46 now. So it was like 43. Looked like he did. Like it's crazy how the show is just basically like, well, we know what Pedro Pascal looked like at that age. We're gonna make him look like that age again. No notes. Um, but this dinner, so they're like sitting there, and it's like if I was if I was Tess and Joel, and I was because they were eating bark in the episode before this, or they were whatever the fuck they were eating when Ellie pulls out her sandwich
Very
in front of
stale
them.
beef jerky. That is what I'm going with. Just very stale beef jerky.
Very well. So they had that, and so it is so funny because they have like this full ass like 5 course meal with wine and like mashed potatoes and stuff. So I would be furious if I was sitting at this table eating this meal and then had to go back to like beef jerky. Like the way that this whole friendship works, we don't get to really see it in the like it makes sense why we don't see it that much based on when this show starts. But I just feel like Bill and Frank had the better end of this deal. And
Oh yeah.
Joel and Tess kind of were like, we're not going to push it too far. There are nice friends who every once in a while will let us come over and have a really nice meal, but we
And
don't
it's
push it
like
past that.
we'll bring them things that they need that only we can get, and then maybe they'll just give us something in return. So it's like, hey, it kind of works both ways, but it's also like, why couldn't they just been like, hey, can we just like live in that house like down the block?
That's what
Like I'll just make
I
it my
don't
own.
like.
Like
On the one hand, I get it because it's like, no, they're well, but they're not really like, I don't understand why Joel and Tess at minimum don't go live there because Joel and Tess are not Fedra and they're not the Fireflies. They're in the weird middle ground of like we're not fully Fireflies, but we also don't really agree with what Fedra's doing. but also like we kind of keep our head down and just do whatever we have to. Where I would have been like, hey, buddy, we love each other. What if we just went and lived in this house
But I feel
away
like
from you?
they couldn't do that though, because like they're just so accustomed to their lifestyle. Like if they did that, then what were they gonna do?
But
They would have
I
been
don't
so bored. They
know.
probably would have started picking fights with them across the street, started like terrorizing them,
No,
throwing
see, I think
tomatoes at their house.
Joel would have had the time of his life because he says in this scene, he's like, "You need to fix." Like he would have fixed everything. Like him, I feel like if they went and lived there, Joel and Bill would have like a fucking shop where they're just making furniture, building houses, having the time of their life, fixing everything.
Well, yeah,
Um,
because he mentioned the wire thing about the fence and how like, hey, like you should fix this because it's gonna like go bad very soon, and if you put this there, it's gonna
yeah.
last you a lifetime.
Well, and it's like so to backtrack slightly, they go mainly because like Frank is lonely. So there's still that element of Frank being like, I'm lonely. This is not the life I want to leave or I want to lead. I want to have that companionship with someone else that's not just you. And so that is born from their like conversation on the radio, which is kind of nice to know. Like, there are still those elements where like Frank's like, I don't want to say goodbye to the life I knew where I would talk to people all the time. Even though Bill is like, I don't want to talk to a single fucking person in this world. Like, don't bring them here. I don't want to talk to them. Um, and I'm glad we did get that kind of the Bill and Joel moment too, because it was like
Yeah,
they're similar. And I think without it, it would have just felt kind of like, oh, that's the guy they know from the radio. Oh well.
and it would have felt wasted.
Yeah, it for sure would have felt wasted if, because like you said, like people probably are, I'm sure gamers are going to be a little upset that is like it's not perfect. This is the most change from two characters that we've seen thus far,
Yeah,
and it is pretty much just because the show itself was trying to give these two characters an arc that was not so one is dead, the other is left heartbroken. And I kind of like, I love the way it's working out. I love this section a lot because I think we learned a lot about Tess, we learned a lot about Frank, and we learned a lot about Bill and Joel, especially because those two being so similar. I think without it, we would have been missing. I don't want to jump to the end because we would have been missing something that is at the end. Because like Joel is just like sitting, and he is eyeing up Bill, and the two of them are kind of like, "Yeah, buddy, I don't want to be here just as much as you don't want to be here." But I like that about them, that
yeah,
they're very honest with each other. Despite Tess and Frank, this is the most that Tess felt like a human to me in this show. I love Tess. I think she's a really cool character. But this was where I was like, oh, yes, she is a woman who lived in the 21st century and like still has kind of those like moments where she is like, I want to run around. I want to talk to people. I want to have fun.
yeah. Like it kind of makes you like see her as a human almost. Like she's not
Yeah, it's a,
just like driven to just be chaotic and cause violence and kill people.
yeah. And this whole like episode was just like, these are people. Like, in case you forgot, these people just like had lives and then were forced to kind of figure out their new normal. So their dynamic results in like a pretty cute kind of thing. So as we were saying, as they're going to leave, Bill and Frank and Tess are like, "We're gonna come up with a code. We'll do music. I'm gonna tell you decades, and then this is what this decade means," which is like the code that Ellie finds. That is, 80s music is bad, 70s is meh, and then the 60s is fine. Joel is talking to Bill, and Bill is basically like, "I don't want you guys to come back here. I don't need anything." And Joel's like, yeah, you do. You're not going to have the infected. You're not going to have Bedra. They don't care. But you're going to have people wanting to come here and steal shit from you. And that's going to fail. That's going to fail. They're going to see that.
Yeah.
Um, which is a fun dynamic for them because I feel like that's kind of both their fortes is like here's how you survive.
Like, it's just one of those things where it's just, like, you're kinda telling him, like, "Hey, like, I don't care about you. I know we don't like each other, but I'm trying to keep you alive too by, like, giving you this because
Yeah.
I can get it for you easily."
And they do have a
And he
cute
has
little,
no use for it, so it's just kind of like, "Here, you take it then."
yeah, and they do have a cute, so they do end up like trading stuff. Tess and Frank trade a gun for some seeds. Tess gets the gun, Frank gets the seeds. And so then Bill and Frank have little strawberries and they're so happy. They're like, look at my strawberry. I'm gonna eat this because they're in love and they kiss on the strawberries. Everything's not great though because Joel's right. People come trying to steal their shit. So Bill gets shot in this like fight to try and keep what's theirs, which did for a second, the way that it was shot and the way that like Frank was holding Bill's hand made it seem like Bill was dead right there, which was wild.
And I didn't like that because every HBO show that I watch where a character gets shot, and I'm using Tony Soprano as an example, because that man got shot like 3 times and somehow didn't die. But then in Dexter, Deb got shot twice and she died the last time.
Well, that's
Like, and it's in the
Showtime. Well,
same exact spot.
but that's the problem. That's Showtime. Dexter is Showtime.
But
And
still.
Sopranos is HBO. HBO, you can get shot and you're fine. But well, unless you're uh any of the people on the boat in the White Lotus. But
But then that just shows that Frank was low key a doctor though in some life.
because he did like
He
stop the
figured it all
bleeding.
out.
So yeah, so then it jumps again, and this time it is in the modern timeline of The Last of Us. It's 2023, and they're like old. Like they're old. It's they
They're
age
old.
so fast. They age so fast, which it's the apocalypse. As I said, there's no moisturizer. They like I get it, but also it's like they went from like Nick Offerman as you know him and Murray Bartlett as you know him to like what if they were 75? And I was like, it's been 10 years. But it's like I get it. You age faster in the apocalypse, whatever. Um, so they're all gray. Murray Bartlett seems to have it, they don't say, but it kind of feels like MS or some kind of degenerative disease because he can't really like his motor functions of like his hands and obviously his feet don't work as well anymore. And he takes medicine, so it's like clearly they found a doctor. He's been diagnosed, but like you don't know what it is and you don't know the extent of it. They're like together. They're going through their day. He's like, Bill, come and help get me inside. I'm cold. And so Bill wills him in. He's painting, but he can't paint in the same way he could before. You see like paintings that he's done of him and Bill throughout the house. Um, and it's just kind of like a calmer life, but to the same kind of idea of like Frank's like, I want out. I don't want to do this anymore. Frank says to Bill, like, they have one night, that's fine. And then the next day, Bill wakes up and Frank has put himself back in his wheelchair.
Which I thought he
And
was dead. Like, he was getting ready to die or something. Like, that was the most terrifying thing. I was just like, please no. Like, I don't want to watch, like, Bill just off him. Like, please
well, and but
no.
also the way that he was sitting in the chair, I was like, what the fuck is going on? The reality is that he put himself in the chair so that he could do it. And then he said to uh, Bill that this is his last day. He's like, I'm going to stay up because I'm dying today. I'm not making it through the night. Here's what I want you to do. They basically make like a suicide pact, even though it's not that clear. But they're basic, like Bill's basically like, if you die, I die. Like I've
Yeah.
had a wonderful life. Um, pours a like they have a nice meal, they have a nice day. They're kind of like just going through the day of it all. And then they have like a very heartbreaking conversation where it's just like, did you pour that in the bottle? And he's like, yeah, I did, like enough to kill a horse. Like I've lived my life. I'm old. Like you were the reason that I was doing this and staying alive because I had something to protect. Um, and so Bill writes a letter for whomever finds it, probably Joel.
Yeah.
and the two go to bed together, and then that's the last we see. They like go to bed and they die in each other's arms, and we don't see anything. It is just implied that that is what happened to Bill and Frank.
But can we just talk about, like, thank you, Neil, thank you, Craig, for making them just die. We don't need them to wake up and be infected. Thank you.
Listen,
Because
every other
I
property
don't
they would
I don't
have
want to watch
infected.
Frank crawl on the floor trying to kill somebody. Like, I don't need to see
Yeah,
that.
in every other
Like,
property that would have happened. But yeah, I do like that it is basically like, nope, they are two people who love each other and they went and died together and they died in each other's arms. And Bill even writes in the letter, like, don't come in the room. Like, I barricaded the door because like this is our goodbye. We opened the door so like it wouldn't smell, but like this is our love and our life and we're dead, so don't worry about us. Um, which then explains, so like I realized while I was watching this that it explains when they died when you listen to the music, because Joel says in the pilot, because Joel said if they don't reset it after a certain point, it switches to 80s music. So what that means is they have been dead at least up until when they leave Boston and the music changes to 80s music, because that's when Depeche Mode plays as they're leaving. So it's like that is like the latest that they could have possibly died.
yeah, so it's probably like, I would give it like at least 3-4 weeks or something.
Yeah, I forget how the amount of time he said that it takes until it resets, but it's so you're like, okay, well, that's how long they've been dead. And you can see like dust on the table when Ellie and Joel do get there. And Joel
The
can kind of sense that
sunflowers are
something's
dead.
up. Yeah, which funny because sunflowers are already dead. That's why they're my favorite flower, because they're dead when they bloom. But so Joel is kind of like Joel goes in, you can tell he can tell something's up. He's like Bill, Frank, and then Ellie finds the letter. Um, and in it, it's basically one of my favorite parts of this whole episode. So this episode is so sad. You're like you're emotional because these two characters clearly love each other and died, and it's like it's to me a better story than it was in the game, only because you didn't have a heartbreak. It is two characters who have decided that they want to die together, and it's poetic even though it is depressing. And then Bill writes this letter where he writes in
I think
the
of that
letter.
I think of that lizard. The meme with the lizard with he.
Oh, but also like if you've listened to Nick Offerman laugh, it's like they just wrote out how Nick Offerman laughs because he's like, and it's just like how he. It's funny, but it's also like this is a suicide letter, and he's like, and I love that for Bill. No notes, Bill. Basically, Bill is like, Joel, you're probably gonna find this. You want a car? You take the car that's in the garage. Take it. Do whatever you want with it. I don't care. But there you go. There's the car. And Ellie is reading it to him and does say in the letter, anyway, I never liked you. Which that is also very poetic for his relationship with Joel.
Oh
The
god.
two of them were like, even in death, I didn't like you. I put up with you, but I didn't like you.
I love that though. Like, Nick Offerman, it was the perfect Bill.
Yeah, it worked so well. Just I like their dynamic a lot. It's great. Ellie realizes they have hot water, so she's like, "We're taking baths. I'm going first. Bye. You smell. You're next." And so it's just kind of the two of them figuring out what they need from the house. Ellie, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ellie goes and puts on the outfit that like she wears in the game.
Yeah, she like, I guess like Joel finds a box of like women's shirts. Not sure where
Yeah,
exactly this came from. Not gonna question it. But
listen, it's
they
Bill.
just
He
found the
found it in
shirt,
some
and then
closet.
Ellie puts on the iconic shirt
Yeah,
and then
and
starts breaking things in the house.
yeah, she breaks the grandfather clock almost instantly. Joel comes down wet, in a plaid shirt and like just truly hair slicked back, wet. Um, and the two of them go out in the garage and they're getting ready to leave. And there's Joel with his hair. Oh, Jesus, I would love to be in the car. Um, it's so hot and nice. So they're getting in this car. They're ready to leave. Ellie finds a tape, like a tape deck. It's a tape. I don't
But
know how to
you're
describe it.
forgetting how she found a gun though, because they went
Oh
down
yeah,
in the
she
bunker, and then
straight
she's
up
like,
found a gun.
"Can I have a gun?" No, like
Joel
continuously
refuses
no.
to give her a gun.
So then she found that gun in the drawer, desk, or whatever the heck it is. I haven't seen one of those in ages, I feel like, but she
Oh,
finds
my
it,
grandma used to have
throws
one
her
at the desk.
throws it in her little backpack, and then like, okay, we're good to go.
Yeah, yeah, she truly does steal a gun. Like, good job, girl. Joel's not gonna be mad at you for that one. Um, they go though, and they get into the car. Like, they basically grab what they need, um, and do exactly what Bill said. They don't go in that room because Joel tries. Ellie reads him the letter, and then they don't touch it again. Um, which I kind of liked. I thought that was really sweet that they were just like, nope, that you said that that's it. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
go in there. They get in the car. Ellie finds a tape, which is Linda Ronstadt, and so she goes. She wanted music on. Joel was yelling at her the entire time. He's like, "Ellie, stop! Ellie, no, Ellie!" And then she puts in the tape deck. She puts the tape in the tape deck, and Linda Ross. He goes, "Oh no, this is nice. It's better than nothing." Or she says it's better than nothing, and he says, "This is nice. Do you know who Linda Ronstadt is?" And she just goes, "You know I don't know who Linda Ronstadt is." And then they're just listening to the music driving down the road, and it is the song that Bill plays, and it's just like genuinely a very sweet episode. Um, there isn't really like it's funny and it's cute, but it is just sweet.
And
It
then I
didn't
know at
have
the
this in it
end,
though.
oh my god, here we
It
go.
didn't have that
Here we
cast in it
go.
though. I couldn't.
But I
I
know,
was too sweet about this episode. I had to do something.
but it's like even at the end how it like pans out and you see like kind of like the window. It kind of does look like the window in the first game for like the
Yeah,
loading screen. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, like I see what you guys are doing here. Like you're kind of throwing things in just a little bit. So I'm enjoying the little Easter eggs. I'm sad that it wasn't like when the episode first was on. It was just kind of like in the beginning,
yeah.
Ellie finds the arcade machine and it's Mortal Kombat 2 and it's not Angel Knives, but we all can't
I
be
did.
winners.
I did fear that a hand was gonna just like appear on the fucking windowsill because it was like, you know,
Or jump
I'm like,
scare.
I was like, don't jump scare at me. But yeah, and it's just a genuinely sweet episode. Just in case anyone forgot, there's the bloody bicep. I just want to throw happiness in there because it is such a sad episode. That even the cute moments, you're like, oh, this is depressing. Like,
I
yes,
just
it's cute that
want
they die
Frank's
together, but
art.
also like,
That's
oh,
it.
I would put up a picture of Nick Offerman on my wall like that. If they want to give me the one from his bedroom, I'd hang it up on my wall.
I want the Picasso looking one.
So what are your general thoughts on this episode and the first three episodes that you've seen?
10 out of 10 for this episode. This is probably like the best episode this season. Like hands down. I
Out of
just
these three?
out of these 3 it is the best. Like it just makes me excited to see more. And then now that like season 2 has already been renewed and it was before this episode even came out, like that's insane. I don't think I've ever seen a show like that before where they're like, "Hey, 2 episodes in, renew the season."
Yeah. Well, and I don't love that Neil Druckmann keeps being like part two. Oh yeah, that is news I didn't say. Did renew it for season two, which is both great and not great if you know the game. I'd be interested to see if they do this like they did the game.
But I feel
Feel
like
like they might spread it out a bit more.
it's gonna be very spread out. Like I feel like they're gonna build more of a story, and like I have my theories of how they're gonna do it. I won't get into it right now because that's gonna be a whole other mess. But I just feel like there's gonna be more seasons to build up to certain events that happened in the games, and then like the way they're doing backstories, it makes me more excited because even playing part 2, I'm kind of like, well, why didn't I get more of this? Like, I wanted more of certain things because I didn't understand, like, what's the point of them.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I love this episode a lot. Out of all of my screeners, I couldn't stop thinking about episode three. I'm not alone in that. Like I've seen a lot of critics be like, "Oh my god, episode three! Oh my god, episode three!" So uh, it was like once I started seeing other critics be like, "Episode three is like the best episode of the series," I felt better because I was like, "Is it just because I like these actors? I can't stop. Like, why can't I stop thinking about it?" And then everyone tonight was talking about it. So I was like, great. We're all kind of on board that this is a really good episode of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
So with that, we're on to now. Sophie is going to make fun of me for this. I have to sing this song, Sophie,
Oh,
because
Jesus.
we've never had it professionally made. I just sing it myself, so please prepare yourself
All right, I'm
for
ready.
our favorite time of the week. Stash, 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 stash. The stash on everybody's lips is gonna be Pedro's. Okay, it is stash of the week, which I will go first so that you know how this works. Um, I have picked. It was a suggestion by an artist who likes to draw and listen to our podcast, which I lost my mind when I saw that because thank you. I don't know why you're listening. This is chaos, but like thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's listened to the chaos. But I was tagged in this and it was like, is this the stash of the week? And for sure is my stash of the week. It's for a photo shoot that he did where he's looking like a greaser. If you told me he wanted to just start singing Danny Zuko song, no, he'd be Kaniki.
Yeah.
He would for sure be Kaniki. If you told me he wanted to just start singing, you know, Grease Lightning, I would fully believe it. And it's beautiful. It's just a good look, a good jacket, tattoo on display. We love to see it. I love it all around, and that is why I've chose this as my stash of the week. Now, Sophie, who I don't think loves Pedro Pascal in any way that I do.
I enjoy
Um,
him, but Pedro, if you ever listen to this episode, don't worry. Like, I'm a fan, but
I don't think Sophie would marry you on on a drop of a dime like I would. But Sophie, you have picked this.
it was the weapon.
The
Like, what
duct
is this
tape
photo?
spear. It's clearly Oberyn days. This is clearly when he was over
Like, I
Myrtle.
just love it.
Yeah, there's clearly
It's like
his Oberyn days.
it's the mustache that goes from like the way his beard is. Like, he fully can't grow facial hair, and it just makes me love it even more.
He can't. Okay, listen. To be fair to this man, he can grow facial hair. It is just patchy. So like, there's just like a patch missing. And it's great. I love the missing patch of facial hair. But you are correct. This one is very much look at how little I can grow my
I like this
mustache.
one.
Um, yeah, that's his Oberyn days. Which, as we were watching The Last of Us, I found out a cat named Oberon died, and I was like, this feels weird. It was a wild time.
Oberon.
Yeah, Oberon died, and I was like, what's going on? But yeah, so that was episode three. There's still many episodes of The Last of Us, and we will be here every week recapping them, and then go straight on into The Mandalorian because what else do I have in my life? Other than talking about Pedro Pascal properties. But Sophie, tell the people where they can find you.
Twitter mainly at Sobi-Wan Kenobi. Like, I don't know.
Pitch your Twitch account,
Oh.
dumbass. Oh my god.
I am gonna try to stream more on my Twitch account. It is at Sobi-Wan, so catch me on there at some point in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, please do, because that is where I watched The Last of Us. Because Sophie said, "Oh my god," we were talking about this show a bunch, and I went, "I don't know the game," and she went, "I'll play it for you," and played both parts because I was like, I can't play video games. I'm bad at them. And thus this whole thing was born. So go check out Sophie's Twitch. Go to her Twitter where she posts memes about Tony Soprano to The Last of Us. Um, they're great. You can follow me at Rachel Leishman. You can follow my work at the Mary Sue and Collider, and check back here every week for new episodes, and so that you can get all up to date on news. If we get to go to SNL, I am sure there'll be an episode about it.
I can't wait.
And there'll be an episode in general about his SNL. But until next time, follow us at Podro Pascal on social media and tweet at us, review, like, subscribe. Pedro, if you're listening, we would love to have you on the show. And until next time, bye bye.